On August 17, 1943, American bombers appeared over Regensburg, Germany at 11:45 in the morning. They had departed England more than 6 hours earlier. The math was impossible. Range charts said they should have turned back 300 miles ago. Fuel reserves should have forced abort over occupied France, yet they pressed on. 230 B-17s crossed the Alps, struck deep inside Bavaria, then continued south across the Mediterranean. They did not return to England. They landed in North Africa, over 1,000 miles one way, without fighter escort for most of the route. German High Command demanded an explanation. American doctrine had no provision for such an operation. The war room at 8th Air Force Headquarters in High Wycombe, England, is thick with cigarette smoke and the low hum of ventilation struggling to clear it. Maps cover the walls. Red thread traces bomber routes across the Channel, over the Low Countries, into Germany. Every line stops before it reaches the industrial core. The threads end where fighter escort runs out of fuel. It is early summer, 1943. The combined bomber offensive is not yet winning. It is barely surviving. Losses over targets like Schweinfurt and Ploesti are measured in double-digit percentages. Some raids lose more aircraft than they destroy factories. The arithmetic is unsustainable. Planners know it. Crews know it. The enemy knows it. Brigadier General Henry Harley Arnold, known universally as Hap, sits in Washington with reports spread across his desk. He commands the Army Air Forces. He answers to Marshall, to Roosevelt, to Churchill indirectly, and to the unforgiving calculus of industrial war. His belief is absolute. Air power, applied with precision and in overwhelming mass, can break the back of German industry. It can shorten the war. It can save lives in the long run. But belief does not extend range. It does not thicken armor. It does not bring bombers home. Arnold is not a mystic. He is a pragmatist with a vision. He flew with the Wright brothers. He survived early aviation when engines failed and wings folded. He built an air arm from almost nothing. He understands metal fatigue, fuel load, and crew endurance as well as any engineer. And he knows the central problem strangling his offensive. American heavy bombers can reach the Ruhr, but not comfortably. They can reach Munich, but not reliably. And they cannot go farther without abandoning the return trip. The doctrine is clear. Bombers strike in daylight. They fly in tight formation for mutual defensive fire. They rely on altitude, speed, and the Norden bomb sight for precision. Fighter escort accompanies them as far as fuel permits, then turns back. The bombers continue alone. They face flak. They face interceptors that have time to climb, form up, and attack in coordinated waves. They face attrition that no amount of bravery can offset. Arnold reads loss reports with the focus of a man who knows each percentage represents 10 men. He reads intelligence summaries showing German fighter production increasing, not decreasing. He reads memos from 8th Air Force Commander Ira Eaker requesting more aircraft, better escort, clearer weather, and time. Time to build strength. Time to learn. Time the enemy is also using. In the summer of 1943, two concepts are colliding. The first is the belief that strategic bombing can win wars by destroying the enemy's ability to produce weapons. The second is the harsh reality that bombers, unescorted deep into enemy territory, cannot survive long enough to make that theory work. Arnold is caught between them. He has promised results. He has defended the doctrine against Navy. Skeptics and Army ground commanders who see heavy bombers as a diversion of resources. He cannot afford to be wrong. The limiting factor is always the same: range. Fighters like the P-47 Thunderbolt are powerful, but their combat radius is short. They can escort bombers to the German border, sometimes slightly beyond, then must turn back or run out of fuel over enemy territory. The P-38 Lightning has longer legs, but fewer numbers and maintenance troubles in the cold, damp air over Europe. The solution everyone wants, a long-range escort fighter, does not yet exist in operational numbers. So, the bombers go alone. They go in hundreds, stacked in combat boxes, bristling with 50-caliber machine guns. They go with courage and discipline. And they come back missing dozens of aircraft, trailing smoke, landing with dead and wounded aboard. Some do not come back at all. Arnold knows he cannot wait for a perfect solution. The invasion of Europe is being planned. The Soviets are bleeding on the Eastern Front and demanding a second front in the West. The combined chiefs of staff have committed to destroying German war production before the ground invasion begins. That means deep penetration raids. It means accepting losses. But it also means finding a way to stretch the possible. The idea is radical. Instead of returning to England, what if the bombers kept going? What if they struck a target deep in Germany and continued south, landing in North Africa? A shuttle mission. One way out, refuel and rearm in the Mediterranean, then strike again on the way back, or stage from the south. It doubles the effective range. It puts targets within reach that were previously untouchable. It splits German defenses, forcing them to cover approaches from two directions. The concept is not entirely new. Shuttle raids have been discussed, but the logistics are staggering. Fuel and ordnance must be prepositioned in North Africa. Navigation must be flawless. There is no margin for error when there is no home base to limp back to. Weather over the Alps must cooperate. Crew rest, maintenance, and coordination between two theaters must align. And all of this must happen while maintaining the facade of a normal mission, so the Germans do not anticipate the departure route. Eaker is cautious. He has lost too many crews to approve a mission that adds new risks. But Arnold sees it differently. He sees an opportunity to prove that range is not an absolute limit. That doctrine can bend. That air power, intelligently applied, can achieve what the enemy believes is impossible. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. Curtis LeMay is 36 years old. He does not look like a visionary. He looks like a man who has forgotten how to sleep. His face is broad, often expressionless. He chews unlit cigars. He does not waste words. He commands the 305th Bomb Group and later the 3rd Bomb Division. His reputation is built on two things. He brings his bombers back and he gets results. LeMay does not believe in luck. He believes in fuel management, formation discipline, and the aggressive suppression of fighter attacks through coordinated defensive fire. He believes that if you fly straight and level through flak during the bomb run, your bombardier has a chance to hit something. If you jink and dive, you waste fuel, break formation, and scatter bombs across empty fields. His crews hate the straight approach. They do it anyway, because LeMay's groups have lower loss rates than others, and everyone knows it. He is a navigator by training. He understands dead reckoning, wind drift, and the accumulation of small errors over long distances. He knows that most crews get lost, not because they lack skill, but because they lack discipline. They trust their instincts instead of their instruments. They fly a heading that feels right instead of the one calculated before takeoff. LeMay drills navigation into his crews until it is reflex. He flies with them, not behind a desk. He knows what the cockpit smells like 6 hours into a mission, when oil smoke mixes with sweat and cold air. When the planners brief the Regensburg-North Africa shuttle, LeMay is chosen to lead the first wave. Not because he is senior, but because he will not deviate. He will not turn back early. He will not allow his formation to spread out or lose cohesion. If the mission can be done, he will do it. The target is Regensburg, home to a Messerschmitt factory producing Bf-109 fighters. It is 200 miles beyond the range of existing escort. The mission profile is simple in concept, brutal in execution. Take off from England, fly southeast across the Channel and occupied Europe. Strike Regensburg. Continue south over the Alps, cross the Mediterranean, land in North Africa. Total distance, over 1,000 miles. Time in the air, more than 10 hours for the lead aircraft, longer for stragglers. LeMay studies the fuel figures. There is no reserve. Weather delays will kill the mission. Headwinds will kill the mission. Navigation errors will kill the mission. Combat damage that increases drag will force aircraft to ditch in the Mediterranean. There is no margin. He briefs his crews without drama. They will carry maximum fuel and reduced ammunition to save weight. They will fly a precise airspeed to optimize range. They will maintain formation to reduce individual fuel burn through slipstream advantage. They will not, under any circumstances, deviate from the planned route. If an aircraft falls behind, it will not be escorted back. It will be alone. There are no questions. The men know LeMay does. Not approve missions he does not believe in. If he says it can be done, they trust the math. They do not trust the enemy to cooperate, but that is a different problem. The air crews preparing for Regensburg are not rookies. By mid-1943, the 8th Air Force has learned bitter lessons. Early raids were flown with inadequate training, poor formation discipline, and optimistic assumptions about German defenses. Crews learned that the Luftwaffe does not give up. That flak over the Ruhr is as thick as thunderclouds. That frostbite, hypoxia, and mechanical failure kill as surely as bullets. These men are professionals now. They know how to put on an electrically heated suit in the dark. They know the sound a good engine makes at 23,000 feet and the sound it makes when a cylinder fails. They know how to clear a jammed gun with numb fingers. They know the navigator's job is to save their lives, and the bombardier's job is to make the terror worthwhile. LeMay walks the hard stands the night before the mission. He does not give speeches. He watches the ground crews loading bombs and topping off fuel tanks. He watches armorers feeding belts into gun bays. He smells hydraulic fluid and high-octane gasoline. He sees young men moving with the efficiency of repetition, because repetition is the only thing that keeps aircraft flying and men alive. There is a stillness before a maximum effort mission. Not peace. Stillness. The kind that comes when everyone knows the odds and chooses to step forward anyway. LeMay feels it. He does not speak of it. He returns to his quarters and reviews the route one more time. Takeoff is set for dawn. Weather over the Alps is forecast to be clear. Forecast, not guaranteed. He does not sleep much. Few commanders do the night before they send men beyond the point of return. Doctrine is written in fuel and physics. A B-17F Flying Fortress carries 2,400 gallons of gasoline in wing and fuselage tanks. At cruise settings, it burns roughly 200 gallons per hour. That gives 12 hours of flight, in theory. In practice, takeoff, climb to altitude, formation assembly, combat maneuvers, and any defensive action all increase consumption. A realistic maximum mission duration is 9 to 10 hours. After that, tanks run dry. The distance from England to Regensburg is approximately 450 miles. A direct return flight would total 900 miles, pushing the edge of possible range, but remaining within doctrine if winds cooperate and combat is brief. But Regensburg is not the difficult part. The difficulty is what happens after. From Regensburg, the bomber stream must continue south, over the Alps, where peaks reach 12,000 feet, and weather changes without warning, across northern Italy, where German and Italian air defenses are still active, over the Mediterranean, where a ditched bomber becomes a search and rescue problem with low odds of success. To airfields in Algeria and Tunisia, newly secured, barely equipped, and more than 600 miles from the target. Total mission distance exceeds 1,000 miles. Flight time, assuming no delays, will approach or exceed 10 hours. There is no published doctrine for this. There is no training syllabus. The flight manuals do not cover one-way strategic raids. The fuel charts do not include alpine crossing factors. Every calculation is done by hand, on paper, with assumptions that must hold true, or men will die. LeMay and his planners work backward from fuel exhaustion. They calculate cruise speed, altitude, and power settings that will stretch range to the absolute limit. They assume no combat over the target, which is absurd. They assume perfect navigation, which is optimistic. They assume no aircraft will suffer damage that increases drag, which is fantasy. But they calculate it anyway, because the mission has been ordered and the numbers must close. Weight is everything. Extra ammunition is offloaded. Personal items are left behind. Even some armor plating is removed from selected aircraft. Bomb loads are reduced slightly to allow maximum fuel. The aircraft will be lighter over the target, which improves fuel economy but reduces defensive firepower and protection. It is a trade. Everything is a trade. The other problem is formation integrity. Bomber formations work because aircraft fly in tight groups, overlapping fields of fire to create a defensive sphere. Stragglers are killed. Always. German fighters ignore the formation and pick off isolated bombers. They attack from angles the lone gunner cannot cover. A B-17 alone is a target. A B-17 in formation is part of a flying fortress, but formation flying burns extra fuel. Constant throttle adjustments to hold position, maneuvering to avoid collisions, climbing to stay with the group. If you fall behind. On a normal mission, this is acceptable. On a mission with zero fuel margin, it could be fatal. LeMay briefs his pilots to fly loose formations, wider spacing, less jockeying for position. It reduces defensive effectiveness, but it saves fuel. Another trade. There is also the question of what happens if the mission is delayed. Weather over England is unpredictable. Fog, low clouds, and rain can scrub a mission or delay takeoff by hours. If the Regensburg force takes off late, they will arrive over North Africa after dark. The airfields there are not equipped for night recovery of hundreds of bombers. There are no lighted runways, no instrument approach systems. Crews will have to find blacked-out airstrips in the desert by dead reckoning and hope. The planners propose a two-wave attack. LeMay's force will hit Regensburg and continue south. A second force will strike Schweinfurt, a ball-bearing production center, and return to England. The two raids will split German defenses and complicate interception. But the timing must be precise. If the second wave is delayed, the Luftwaffe will have time to rearm and refuel after engaging the first wave. They will be waiting. Eaker approves the plan with reservations. He tells LeMay the mission will proceed only if weather is favorable and timing holds. LeMay acknowledges. He knows weather will not be perfect. He knows timing will slip. He prepares anyway. Arnold in Washington receives word that the mission is planned. He does not interfere. He is pushed for deeper raids, for proof that American bombers can reach any target in Europe. This mission, if successful, will validate years of argument. If it fails, it will provide ammunition to those who believe strategic bombing is a costly experiment with limited results. He waits. The night before the raid, intelligence reports indicate increased Luftwaffe activity near the planned route. German radar stations have been tracking the buildup of American bomber forces in England. They know something large is coming. They do not know where. The advantage of surprise is slim, but it exists. Fuel trucks make final rounds at the bomber bases. Ground crews check oil levels, tire pressure, and oxygen bottles. Armorers ensure guns are clean and belts are loaded without kinks. Meteorologists update weather forecasts, noting a slight shift in upper-level winds. Not enough to scrub the mission, enough to matter. LeMay walks to his aircraft in the pre-dawn dark. He will fly in the lead B-17, not because he has to, but because he always does. His crew knows his habits. They do not speak much. They run checklists by flashlight. Engines cough, catch, and settle into a deep rumble. Across the field, more than 200 bombers come to life. The sound is immense. It rolls across the countryside like distant thunder. There is no turning back now. The mission is not yet in the air, but it is already in motion. The first aircraft lifts off at 9 in the morning. The second follows 30 seconds later. Then another, and another. The sky fills with the sound of Wright Cyclone engines at full throttle. Dust and smoke swirl in the prop wash. By the time the last bomber clears the runway, the first is already turning southeast, climbing, beginning the slow process of assembly. LeMay's lead aircraft circles over a designated radio beacon. Other bombers join, slotting into position. The formation builds in layers, groups stacking into wings, wings into a division. It takes time. Fuel is already burning. 30 minutes after takeoff, the bombers are still over England, forming up. This is normal. It is also costly. Every minute in the air is a minute closer to empty tanks. At 9:30, the formation is nearly complete. LeMay checks his watch. The plan called for departure by now. They are behind schedule. The second wave, tasked with hitting Schweinfurt, has not yet taken off. Weather over their bases is worse. Fog, low clouds, visibility near minimums. The timing is slipping. LeMay faces a choice. Wait for the second wave, preserving the element of coordinated attack, but burn more fuel and arrive over North Africa in marginal daylight. Or go now, accept that the Luftwaffe will have time to recover between attacks, but maintain fuel reserves. He considers for less than a minute. Fuel is not negotiable. He signals the formation to proceed. The bomber stream turns southeast. Escort fighters, P-47 Thunderbolts, join near the coast. They will stay as long as their fuel allows, perhaps an hour, perhaps less. Then the bombers will be alone. The crews know this. It is the reality of every deep raid. But today the loneliness will last longer. The formation crosses the English Channel at 23,000 feet. The air is cold. Temperatures outside hover near 40 below zero. Gunners flex their fingers inside heated gloves. They watch the sky, scanning for the small dark shapes that mean enemy fighters. The channel below is gray and textured with whitecaps. It looks deceptively close. It is 4 miles down. Over France, the first flak appears. Black puffs of smoke blossoming in clusters. The bombers fly straight. The formations do not waver. The flak is intense, but not perfectly accurate. Most bursts are slightly off in altitude or deflection. A few bombers take hits. Metal punctures. Hydraulic lines sever. One engine on a B-17 trails smoke, then feathers. The aircraft drops back slightly, but holds formation. The crew does not abort. Not yet. The P-47s reach their fuel limit over eastern France. They waggle their wings and turn back. The bomber crews watch them go. Now it is just altitude, formation, and the guns. The Luftwaffe knows they are coming. Radar has tracked them since the coast. Fighter controllers are vectoring interceptors into position. The Germans have time to climb, to organize, to choose their attack angles. The first fighters appear near the German border. Bf-109s and FW-190s, small and fast, climbing from below. They do not attack immediately. They position themselves, forming up into attack groups. This is the doctrine the Luftwaffe has perfected. Do not engage in ones and twos, mass the attack, overwhelm the defenses, focus on one bomber at a time. The attacks begin in earnest near Stuttgart. Fighters come from 12 o'clock high, the most dangerous angle, where the bombers' forward guns have limited traverse. Tracers arc across the sky. Bombers shudder as rounds hit. Gunners fire back, long bursts, trying to disrupt the attack runs. Spent shell casings pile up on the floor of the waste gun positions. The smell of gunpowder fills the fuselage. One bomber takes a hit in the cockpit. The pilot slumps. The co-pilot grabs the controls, fighting to keep the aircraft level. The bomber slides out of formation, losing altitude. Fighters swarm it. It goes down, trailing fire, spinning, no parachutes visible. Another bomber loses two engines on the same side. It cannot hold altitude. It falls behind, and the formation moves on. Alone, it does not last long. LeMay's aircraft takes hits in the wings and tail. The damage is not critical, but fuel is leaking from a punctured tank. The flight engineer reports the loss. LeMay calculates. They have enough to reach the target and continue south. Barely. There is no reserve now. None. The formation presses on. More fighters attack. More bombers fall. The defensive fire is effective enough to keep the fighters cautious, but not enough to stop them. The mathematics of attrition are grinding forward. The Luftwaffe can afford to break off and rearm. The bombers cannot stop. They can only continue. Regensburg appears ahead, a cluster of industrial buildings along the Danube. Flak intensifies. The bombers enter the killing zone, straight and level, bomb bay doors open. Bombardiers hunched over Norden sights, making final adjustments. Airspeed steady, altitude steady. The aircraft shudder with each near miss. The bomb run lasts 2 minutes. It feels longer. Bombs release. The aircraft lurch upward, suddenly lighter. The formations turn south, away from the target. Smoke rises behind them. Fires are visible. The attack is successful, but there is no time to assess damage. The Alps are ahead. Fuel is dropping. The mission is only half over. The bomber stream crosses into Austria, then over the Brenner Pass. The mountains rise on either side, snow-covered peaks shining in the midday sun. The bombers are above the peaks, but not by much. Any aircraft with damage, with failing engines, with excessive fuel consumption, will not clear the mountains. Some do not. They turn back toward Germany, hoping to find flat ground for an emergency landing. They are captured or killed. The rest continue. Over northern Italy, over the Mediterranean, the fuel gauges are deep in the red now. Pilots lean the mixture to the edge of engine failure, trading power for endurance. Engines cough. Some crews manually transfer fuel from one tank to another, balancing the load, squeezing out every possible mile. Land appears on the southern horizon. North Africa. The airfields are there, somewhere in the haze. Navigation is critical now. There are no second chances. Miss the field, and there is no fuel to search. LeMay's navigator confirms the heading. The formation descends. Engines are sputtering. Some bombers land with less than 10 minutes of fuel remaining. Others land on fumes, engines dying as they roll to a stop. 122 bombers reach North Africa. 24 were lost over Germany. The rest are scattered, damaged, or ditched. LeMay climbs out of his aircraft and lights a cigar. His face shows nothing. The mission was possible. Barely. The ground crews in North Africa were not expecting this. Not really. They were told bombers might arrive from the north. They were told to prepare fuel and basic maintenance supplies. But the reality of more than 100 shot-up B-17s arriving nearly out of fuel, with wounded aboard and battle damage ranging from minor to catastrophic, is something else entirely. The airfields at Tellergma and Bonn are rough, packed dirt and pierced steel planking, no hard stands, no revetments. Fuel trucks are few, medical facilities are tense. The logistics of turning around a bomber force for another mission in 24 hours, which is the plan, seem impossible. The ground crews begin anyway. Wounded are unloaded first. Medics move through the aircraft, checking for injuries that were not reported over the radio. Some gunners have been unconscious from hypoxia or blood loss for hours. Some wounds are frozen, the bleeding stopped by the cold at altitude. Now, on the ground in the heat, they bleed again. The medical tents fill quickly. Aircraft are inspected. Bullet holes are counted, not for record-keeping, but to assess structural integrity. Hydraulic leaks are patched. Tires shredded by flak are replaced if spares exist. Engines that threw oil or ran rough are examined. Some cannot be fixed in the field. Those bombers will not fly the next mission. They will wait for parts, for time, for a ship back to England if they are too damaged to repair locally. Fuel is the immediate crisis. The tanker trucks cannot keep up with demand. Fuel is hand-pumped from barrels in some cases. It is slow. It is exhausting. The heat is oppressive, over 100 degrees in the shade, and there is little shade. Ground crews work through the afternoon and into the night. Pilots and co-pilots help. Everyone helps. There is no other option. LeMay tours the flight line. He makes notes. Which aircraft can fly tomorrow? Which crews are too shot up to continue? He does not ask how they feel. He asks if they can do it again. Most say yes. Some lie. He knows they are lying. He accepts the lie because he needs the crews. That evening, reports are transmitted back to England. The mission was a success. The target was hit. The shuttle concept worked. Losses were high, but within acceptable limits, a phrase that means something different to the men who flew than to the men who write the reports. Arnold receives the summary in Washington. He reads it twice. Then he picks up the phone and calls Eaker. Arnold wants to know if it can be repeated. Eaker is cautious. The fuel situation in North Africa is fragile. The Luftwaffe now knows the bombers did not return to England. They will adjust. They will position fighters along the southern routes. The element of surprise is gone, but yes, it can be repeated. Once, perhaps twice more, before the logistical strain makes it impossible. Arnold tells Eaker to proceed. He does not celebrate. He sees the mission for what it is, proof that range is a variable, not a constant. That doctrine can be extended if crews are willing and planners are bold, that the air war has more possibilities than previously believed. He returns to his reports and begins drafting a memo on long-range escort requirements. The shuttle mission bought time. It did not solve the deeper problem. In England, the second wave finally took off, hours late. They struck Schweinfurt and returned home. The delay meant the Luftwaffe had time to rearm after engaging LeMay's force. The Schweinfurt raiders faced coordinated, massed attacks. They lost 36 bombers, more than 15% of the force. The losses are catastrophic. Some groups are nearly wiped out. The crews that survive land shaken, not by fear, but by arithmetic. If every mission costs this much, there will be no crews left by winter. The two missions, Regensburg and Schweinfurt, are analyzed together. The shuttle worked. The cost was high but not unbearable. The second raid, the conventional deep penetration with return to England, was a bloodbath. The conclusion is inescapable. Without long-range escort, deep raids will bleed the 8th Air Force dry. The shuttle mission delayed that reckoning. It did not prevent it. Arnold knows this. He has known it for months. But now he has proof that the bombers can reach deep into Germany and strike targets previously thought invulnerable. The question is no longer whether it can be done. The question is whether it can be sustained. And the answer, for now, is no. Not without fighters that can go the distance. In North Africa, the bombers are refueled and rearmed by dawn. LeMay briefs the next mission, a strike on targets in southern France on the return leg to England. The crews are exhausted. They have flown 10 hours, slept poorly in the heat, and now face another long mission. They climb into their aircraft anyway. Engines start. Formations assemble. The shuttle mission is not over. They take off heading north, back toward Europe. The missions continue. The German reaction to the Regensburg raid is confusion, then alarm. Radar stations tracked the bomber stream inbound. Fighter controllers vectored interceptors. The engagement went as expected. Heavy defensive fire, multiple bombers destroyed, the rest pressed onto the target. Then the bombers turned south. Not west, back toward England. South. At first, controllers assumed it was a feint, a deception to split defenses, but the bombers kept going. Over the Alps, out of radar coverage, gone. Reports came in from observers in Italy. American bombers heading south over the Mediterranean. It made no sense within the known operational pattern. American heavy bombers always returned to England. Always. By evening, intelligence officers pieced it together. The bombers had landed in North Africa. It was a shuttle mission, a one-way strike. The implications were immediate. If American bombers could stage from the south, then targets in southern Germany, Austria, and the Balkans were no longer safe. The defensive focus had been on approaches from the west and northwest. Now defenses would have to be split, thinned, stretched across multiple approach vectors. Luftwaffe High Command ordered increased patrols over the Alps and northern Italy. Fighters were repositioned. Radar coverage was extended where possible, but resources were finite. Every fighter moved south was one fewer to defend against raids from England. Every radar station repositioned left a gap elsewhere. The shuttle mission had not destroyed vast amounts of infrastructure, but it had forced a recalculation of what was possible. Hitler was briefed. He demanded to know how American bombers had crossed the Alps and reached North Africa without being intercepted and destroyed. The answers were unsatisfying. The bombers had been engaged. Many were shot down. But the Americans had accepted the losses and continued. This was the part that troubled German planners, the willingness to sustain losses for a strategic goal. It suggested a depth of resources and resolve that could not be easily countered. In Washington, Arnold reads intelligence summaries showing the German response. Fighter units redeployed. Defensive priorities shifted. The shuttle had worked not just as a tactical success, but as a strategic provocation. It forced the enemy to spread resources, to question assumptions, to defend against possibilities rather than certainties. This was the leverage Arnold had sought. Not the destruction of one factory, but the disruption of an entire defensive system. He writes a memo to his staff. The Regensburg shuttle proves that operational range can be extended through logistical innovation. It also proves that the cost is high. Future shuttle missions should be planned only when strategic value justifies the risk and resource expenditure. More importantly, the mission underscores the urgent need for long-range escort fighters. Until that capability exists, deep raids will remain costly and unsustainable. Arnold does not use the word unsustainable lightly. He is a believer in air power, but he is not blind to losses. The 8th Air Force is losing bombers and crews faster than they can be replaced with experienced personnel. New crews arrive with minimal training. They are shot down on their first or second missions. The loss rate is not just a number, it is a degradation of capability. A force can grow in size while shrinking in effectiveness. The P-51 Mustang is in development, fitted with the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine that gives it the range and performance needed for deep escort, but it is not yet operational in numbers. It will not be ready for months. Until then, the bombers will go alone or with partial escort, and the losses will continue. The Regensburg mission bought proof of concept. It did not buy time. Eaker, back in England, receives orders to prepare for additional shuttle missions if conditions permit. He is skeptical. The logistical burden on North African bases is immense. Fuel, ammunition, and maintenance supplies must be diverted from other operations. The crews are exhausted. The aircraft are wearing out. He agrees to plan for future shuttles, but he does not expect them to become routine. They cannot be. The system cannot support it. LeMay and his crews return to England after striking targets in southern France. The return flight is quieter than the outbound leg. The Luftwaffe is less aggressive. Perhaps they are conserving strength. Perhaps they are repositioning. The bombers land in England with fewer losses than expected. LeMay debriefs and files his report. The mission was feasible. It was not repeatable on a regular basis. He does not recommend making it doctrine. He recommends making it an option. Arnold reads LeMay's report. He underlines the word option. That is what the shuttle mission represents. Not a replacement for existing strategy, but an expansion of possibilities. In war, possibilities are currency. The ability to strike from unexpected directions at unexpected times forces the enemy to defend everywhere. It spreads him thin. It creates opportunities. But Arnold also knows that possibilities without resources are just plans. The shuttle missions required aircraft, fuel, and crews that could have been used elsewhere. The cost must be weighed against the benefit. In the case of Regensburg, the benefit was clear. A factory was damaged, defenses were disrupted, and doctrine was proven flexible. But the cost was 24 bombers and more than 200 men. The arithmetic is always there, waiting. The Regensburg-North Africa shuttle fades from the headlines quickly. By September, the air war has moved on. Raids continue. Losses mount. The drive toward Germany intensifies. The shuttle concept is used again, sparingly, when targets and logistics align. It never becomes routine. It was never meant to. But within the planning staffs, something shifts. The assumption that bombers must always return to their departure base is no longer absolute. Missions can be designed around fuel range if there is a destination beyond the target. This opens new target sets, new timing options, new ways to split and confuse enemy defenses. The mental map of what is possible expands. Arnold does not declare victory. He does not write triumphant memos. He pushes harder. He accelerates the deployment of P-51 Mustangs. He demands more bombers, more crews, more sorties. The shuttle mission proved that range could be extended through logistics and planning, but he knows the real solution is fighters that can escort bombers all the way to Berlin and back. That capability arrives in early 1944. When it does, the air war changes decisively. LeMay is promoted. He will later command bombing operations in the Pacific, where the lessons of fuel management, formation discipline, and long-range planning prove even more critical. The Regensburg mission is a footnote in his career, but it is a footnote that contains the seeds of everything that follows. The willingness to accept risk, the refusal to be bound by doctrine, the understanding that war is a problem to be solved, not a script to be followed. The crews who flew the mission do not talk about it much. They return to the rotation. They fly more missions. Some complete their tours. Some do not. The shuttle is just one mission among many, distinguished by distance and novelty, but not by the fear or the exhaustion. Those are constants. Years later, historians will study the Regensburg raid. They will note the fuel calculations, the timing, the losses. They will debate whether the mission was worth the cost. The answer depends on what you measure. If you measure by factories destroyed, the return is modest. If you measure by defensive disruption and doctrinal innovation, the return is significant. If you measure by the lives of 240 men lost or wounded, the cost is absolute. Arnold, in his post-war writings, reflects on the bomber offensive. He acknowledges the losses. He defends the strategy. He argues that air power, properly applied, shortened the war and saved lives that would have been lost in prolonged ground combat. He does not mention Regensburg specifically, but the mission is embedded in his arguments. It is proof that air power is not static, that it adapts, that it reaches. The lesson of the Shuttle mission is not that long-range bombing won the war. It is that operational limits are often assumptions, not absolutes. Fuel range, escort radius, crew endurance, all can be pushed if the situation demands it and the planning is rigorous. The mission succeeded because planners questioned the assumption that bombers must return home. They asked what happens if we keep going. The answer was 1,000 miles, 10 hours, and a new understanding of what was possible. The air war over Europe would continue for 2 more years. The losses would grow, the raids would reach deeper. Berlin, Ploesti, Dresden, the names accumulate. The bombers keep flying. The doctrine evolves. Escort fighters arrive. Attrition shifts from unbearable to sustainable. The 8th Air Force grows into the most powerful aerial armada ever assembled. But it begins with missions like Regensburg, where men flew beyond the edge of the possible and returned with proof. Arnold never said the mission was easy. He never claimed it was without cost. What he said in memos and meetings and quiet conversations was that it worked. And in war, that is the only verdict that matters. The Shuttle mission, over 1,000 miles, proved that distance is a problem of planning, not physics. That courage without calculation is waste. That air power is not just bombs and guns, but fuel, navigation, timing, and the willingness to question what the manual says is impossible. The sky is not a barrier. It is a medium. And those who understand it, who respect its dangers and exploit its possibilities, will always reach farther than those who do not.